My name is Paige Brassart. I'm the Associate Director for the Student Union and Conference Services here at Texas Women's University. I've worked here since 2012, so except for the time that the building was closed for construction, I've been in this building for over 8 years. And so you get to know the space, you get to know the creaks and cracks, and sometimes there's stuff that doesn't belong for sure. And I'll preface this, I'm very skeptical. I don't believe in ghosts, but boy, there's something in this building. You just feel uncomfortable, like something's watching you. If you have to walk through a dark room at night, you walk as fast as you can to get through. We also had an issue a few years ago with a chair that kept appearing in a room in the exact same place. We'd move the chair, and every time somebody would come back into the room, it was right there. If Virginia's here, she's particular about our furniture arrangements.
We're the Denton County Junior Historians.
Hundreds of man-hours have gone into trying to solve Virginia Carpenter's case.
Photos and information were circulated in dozens of newspapers all across the country.
It's been 73 years since her disappearance, and experts far and wide have all tried to look for her, and so have we. But we've literally done no better. Anyway, so here are the theories. The number one theory was that she was kidnapped and murdered, with the prime suspect being Zachary. And this theory was encouraged by Texas Ranger Louis Rigler because of the inconsistencies in the alibi as well as in the polygraph test. So in the alibi, this was possibly broken by former Mrs. Zachary 10 years after she had said an initial alibi that had supported Zachary's. But 10 years later, and this is from Louis Rigler's In the Line of Duty memoir, Zachary didn't get home until around midnight on the night of June 1st, 1948, which is the night of Miss Virginia Carpenter's disappearance.
I just don't think we should listen to a woman's testimony from like 10 years after the fact.
Right. Also, she had like resent for him because they were, divorced. And she was in Midland. Yes, estranged, right? That was the state of their marriage. Which is very different from from her original alibi, which was that he went home at around 9:30 or 10 p.m. And in the polygraph test, there were technical difficulties that turned into a suspect. The lie detector test was administered by Denton Chief of Police, I.E. Andy Anderson. And this is a quote from I.E. Andy. We can't say that he failed the test, but we can say that discrepancies showed up when he was questioned about the Virginia Carpenter and her whereabouts. And this could be explained though, because the interrogation could have stressed him out because he was interrogated, as we know, with 7 polygraph tests.
That's way too many.
Exactly. That's like 6 too many. And also, he was interrogated until 12:30 a.m. by 3 detectives. Also, another note is that former Mrs. Zachary says that he became nervous, uneasy, and just overall not okay when he talked about Virginia Carpenter.
Well, I mean, if the cops thought I killed someone,
Right.
Talking about that someone would make me uneasy.
Exactly. But also, he had a violent man narrative because of his history with domestic abuse. And also on September 23rd, 1957, he was going to trial for the attempted rape of a Grand Prairie woman. Detectives believed that this was a sign of guilt, as well as used this as a way to hold him. And according to local newspapers at the time, both sides mutually postponed the trial because neither side was ready to present its case, and the charges were dropped by the Grand Prairie woman. And also, another quick thing that is not mentioned anywhere else other than the local newspaper that interviewed Hazel was that Kenny and Bob kidnapped and or murdered her because Zachary identified the 2 boys by the yellow convertible as Kenny and a guy named Bob, who we don't know. Robert? Bobby? Do we know him? We don't know his name, but we know that his name is Bob, nickname, so.
Another theory that goes along with kidnapping is that Virginia was kidnapped, just not by Zachary. In June and July of 1948, state boroughs and 14 leading cities were sent descriptions of Virginia Carpenter. 20 of these states were involved in the case, including New York and California. It is possible that someone could have disposed of the body in a different state, or she was kidnapped in a different state, or ran away to a different state. Instead of Zachary, maybe one of her ex-boyfriends, like Hannah mentioned, could have kidnapped her and killed her, like Mac or Kenny. Personally, I don't think it's Kenny because even the mom doesn't believe that.
Right.
Or another random person that we have no idea exists could have kidnapped her. Another theory that's kind of out there is that she was sold into white slavery or human trafficking. This was actually suggested by her mother in a Tell-All magazine article that she did in 1957. However, this theory wasn't looked into very much. Another possible theory is that she was murdered by a serial killer. Coincidentally, on July 18, 1965, two girls, Miss Suzanne Rigsby and Shirley Ann Stark, were driving to Austin and then disappeared. There are similarities between Virginia's case and this one. All girls were 21 years old, they were attractive brunettes, and they both involved yellow cars.
But, like, didn't they find the guy who killed those girls in Austin, and then when they did the math, it was like he would have been like 2?
Yeah.
At the time Virginia went missing?
Yeah. I think it's important to mention that it's a 17-year difference between these two cases, so it's kind of unlikely that it's the same killer.
Speaking of serial killers, in 1946, 2 years before Virginia's disappearance, a string of couples were attacked and murdered by a serial killer known as the Texarkana Phantom Killer. As we know, Virginia was a native of Texarkana. Two of the Phantom Killer's victims, Paul Martin, who was 17, and Betty Jo Booker, who was 15, were friends of Virginia's. Paul was found dead by his car, and his girlfriend Betty Jo was found about a mile away in the woods. There were no leads on this case. Around a year later, in 1947, a man by the name of Yule Sweeney was arrested for auto theft. During her interrogation by the police, Sweeney's wife, Peggy, claimed that her husband was the Phantom Killer. Her story was incredibly inconsistent. In some stories, she said she waited in the car while her husband went and killed those kids, and in another, she said she was helping him murder people. Her sticking point, though, was that if they went to the place where they found Betty Jo and looked through the bushes, they would find a wallet belonging to her husband. They did, in fact, find a wallet in the bushes. However, it was inconclusive as to who the wallet belonged to, though they were inclined to believe her. Sweeney claimed that he was innocent right up until the end, and after his arrest, the killing stopped. However, the case remains unsolved. I was talking about this case with my dad at dinner one night. As one does. And I was telling him about how the Phantom Killer was never caught and how whatever happened to Virginia was never explained. And this man looked me dead in the eyes and goes, "She is the Phantom Killer." So let's not put any stock into that. However, in January of 1960, remains that fit Virginia's description were found near a farm in East Texas. Virginia had a very specific skeleton. One of her legs was longer than the other, and she had a spine deformity due to an injury when she was a child. However, it was determined that this was a false lead when, quote, "A father and son confessed that they dug up an unmarked grave because the boy needed bones to study in a science class."
Absolutely.
I get it's the 60s, but for a science class,
I don't know that I do it.
no, I feel like if I needed a skeleton for science class, I would use like a chicken or
I don't
something.
need to pass biology.
Go to like Kroger and get yourself a rotisserie chicken. Don't go digging up unmarked grave.
On some more lighthearted notes, she could have run away of her own will. One of the theories is she could have run away to elope with her boyfriend Mac.
Aww.
Instead of him kidnapping her. So that's one. Or there is a lot of like her going different places. Like recently after her disappearance, she was reportedly spotted in Waco asking how to get to Corpus Christi. And there was a lead in Louisiana, but none of those led anywhere, so probably not. But one big one is that on June 12, 1948, a ticket agent at the DeQueen bus station in Arkansas, Mrs. Earl James, says that she saw a girl fitting Virginia's description.
I just want to say, 5'2", brown hair, brown eyes, white woman. That has to be at least like 30% of the female population in the United States.
And if this was statistical, it's like 1 out of 4 women fit that description. The description being Sheridan.
Don't get kidnapped.
Okay,
Sorry.
yes, that's true, but when given a bunch of pictures of young women fitting these descriptions by an FBI agent and Sheriff W.H. Presley, she was able to pick out Miss Virginia Carpenter as the woman that she saw. So that might say something. She claimed to see Virginia getting off the train, waiting a few minutes, and then leaving with a young man. So, yeah.
But that young man was Kenny, we obviously don't know.
Or Mac.
Right, or Mac.
However, upon checking around in DeQueen, the authorities did not find anyone else who had seen her. So,
Well, I don't think that if she did run away, she'd be in like her 90s. So, opening this up, I guess.
Personal theory.
Personal theories. I think that she was murdered and it was not Kenny.
yeah.
That's the only thing I got. Like, I don't know where she is. I don't know if like she was like kidnapped and then killed, or if she was like just tossed under Hubbard Hall. Yeet. Yeah, I just think that she's dead. No one here thinks that she ran away?
I hope she did.
I might be a little negative, but I really don't think she made it out and ran away. I think she died and she was probably kidnapped and murdered. I don't know if it's necessarily Zachary, because like Hannah pointed out in these video series, that there's so many discrepancies with him being questioned and with him being just put as a suspect overall, because he has a lot of things working against him, but at the same time, there's a lot of issues with how the police question him, so I'm not sure if it's Zachary.
If a serial killer did get her, it definitely was not the Texarkana Phantom Killer. Like, it had to be like a different guy.
I think it was a random, just one-off killing.
You think someone just thought, like, that's a woman and grabbed her?
I don't know, because there's not a lot of evidence. There's really nothing.
Yeah, pretty much all the evidence we found was like vocal testimony. It wasn't like actual evidence aside from like her bags. But like it was the 40s. They couldn't like swab her bags, I guess.
I mean, there'd be cameras too. So
Yeah, there'd be
Yeah.
cameras
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone would have at least
Yeah.
seen her at the train station, if not seen someone grab her.
Or you could check the snap map. And maybe like her last
You think Virginia
Yes.
Carpenter would have had Snapchat?
Snapchat? Oh yeah! What the heck? How do you think she would have been able to keep in touch with Kenny, Mac, and the other people?
You're right.
All love though.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful in that she like hopefully eloped by her own free will.
Or at
Living
least
life
if
somewhere.
someone did kill her, I hope that she didn't suffer.
Yes.
In 1948, the culture at the university was very different, and that just had to do with society as a whole in that time frame. I think that society felt that women should be protected and that we needed a husband or a father to help us go through life and to make decisions, and that without these restrictions that we could run into issues. So in terms of Virginia Carpenter's case being more plausible, with TW being a school primarily for women, obviously there's the fact that just percentage-wise we have more females than men, so if somebody's going to go missing, odds are it's going to be a female. Students did not have the amount of freedom that students do now. They came to school and this was their home. They did not leave school without special permission. Seniors were allowed to go on dates on Sunday afternoons and they had to be chaperoned. So I could see it being a very stifling environment, and also it makes it difficult for somebody to walk off without somebody knowing where they're going, because they kept tabs on everybody much more closely than they do now. So I have a thought and then a hope, kind of, and what I hope is that she just decided that what she was doing in life was not for her and made a change and went off somewhere and is living very happily. likely it probably wasn't a happy ending. Nobody really knows for sure.
Thank you for watching our mini video series on the disappearance of Virginia Carpenter.
Comment down below what you think happened to Virginia.
If you know of any more interesting Denton true crime stories, please leave them below as well, and we'll see if we can do something for it.
And subscribe for more. And we're the
Denton County